The Quiet in Maple Lane, a dramatic retelling. Chapter 1. Drowning in silence. The day began the same way every other did, quietly suffocating. Margaret Lane stood by the stove in her robe, staring at the egg she'd cracked 5 minutes ago. It bled into the hot pan, hissing back at her like the life she used to know. Her husband, David, sat at the kitchen table dressed like a man going to war. Crisp navy suit, silver tie, cold eyes. His phone absorbed all his attention. Stocks, sports, anything but her. "Coffee?" she said softly, setting it down. He didn't look up. "Thanks." Her lip twitched. That was the first word he'd spoken to her in 3 days. She waited for more. Nothing came. She sat across from him, wringing her hands. "David, do you still find me attractive?" The fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He glanced up, brows furrowed. "What?" She swallowed. "I don't think you even see me anymore." He sighed and took another bite. "Margaret, not now, please." Chapter 2. The Vanishing. She wandered the halls like a ghost. Their children were gone. Sarah was in Boston. Jordan hadn't called in weeks from Afghanistan. The silence in the house was a thing with claws now. It scratched at her all night long. She opened the closet one afternoon and stared at a shelf lined with sweaters that hadn't been worn since before the pandemic. She used to be alive in those clothes, before motherhood buried her, before David stopped kissing her lips and started kissing his ambition. In a sudden rush of madness, she grabbed an old red dress, the one she wore on their 10th anniversary. She slipped it on. It was tight but beautiful. Her reflection startled her. She dabbed on lipstick, shook out her hair, and waited by the front door for David to return. When he finally walked in 2 hours later, phone still glued to his ear, he glanced at her and said, "We're ordering in tonight, right?" He walked right past her, didn't even see the dress. Chapter 3. The Stranger in the Park. She didn't plan on crying in public, but the tears came anyway. It was late afternoon, cold, wind biting at her cheeks. She sat on a bench by the lake in Willow Park and let the sobs come. "Ma'am," a deep voice interrupted. She wiped her eyes and looked up. He was tall, olive-skinned, around her age, holding a sketchbook. His voice was low, but his eyes were kind. "You okay?" She nodded automatically, but her body betrayed her. A whimper slipped from her lips. He didn't press, just sat on the other side of the bench and pulled his pencil back out. She watched as he drew. Minutes passed. Then he turned the page toward her. It was her face, sad, soft, haunted. "You captured me. You looked like someone who needed to be remembered." His name was Elias. And suddenly, Margaret didn't feel invisible. Chapter 4. Dangerous Light. The meetings became regular. Tuesdays and Thursdays. He brought coffee, she brought stories. Elias laughed at her jokes. He listened. He said things like, "You're fascinating, and the way you see the world is poetic." He touched her hand once when she was laughing, and electricity shot up her arm like she'd been defibrillated. That night, she stood in front of David in the bedroom doorway. "I want us to talk," she said. David didn't even look up from his laptop. "I'm tired, Margaret." "So am I," she said. She watched him for a moment longer. Then she turned, walked into the bathroom, and vomited from the guilt. Chapter 5. The Fantasy and the Fall. With Elias, she wasn't a housewife. She was art, fire, longing. He showed her one of his paintings, a vibrant woman dancing in the rain. Her face was turned skyward, smiling free. "She reminds me of you," he said. "I haven't been that woman in 20 years. You could be." They kissed that day. Once, just once. It burned her lips for days. Chapter 6. The Shatter. Guilt made her nauseous, but so did going home to a man who barely acknowledged her existence. That Sunday, David left his phone on the kitchen table while showering. Margaret didn't mean to look, but she did, and what she found made her knees buckle. Text messages, dozens. Her husband had been having an affair with his assistant for 9 months. 9 months. She gasped. She backed into the wall. She screamed into a pillow so loud her throat bled. He had already left her. Long ago. Chapter 7. Fire. Margaret didn't wait in silence. She set the scene like a stage. Wine uncorked. The kitchen lights dimmed. Her old wedding photos centered on the table like a crime scene exhibit. She wore that red dress again, the one he ignored. Lipstick sharp as blood. When David walked through the door, loosening his tie, his eyes flicked up and froze. She was waiting, armed, dead calm. "I know," she said, voice like flint. He blinked. "Know what?" She took a slow sip of wine, then hurled the glass across the kitchen. It shattered against the wall behind him. He flinched. "Jesus, Margaret, are you crazy?" "Her name is Carissa," she hissed, stepping toward him like a lioness. "You know, the one you've been banging in hotel rooms while I was folding your socks." He opened his mouth, but she was on fire now. 26. Long legs, calls you sir when she wants something, right? She drinks matcha lattes, sends you selfies in the bathroom, tells you she believes in your vision. David stammered. "It wasn't. I never meant for it to." "Oh, save it," she shrieked, slamming her hands on the counter. "You didn't even try to hide it. Do you know how I found out? I opened your goddamn phone to play a Spotify playlist and got front row seats to your filth. You couldn't even delete the nudes." He was silent, shame spreading across his face like a stain. Tears spilled down hers, not of weakness, but of rage. "And you made me feel crazy. For months. You acted like I was too needy, too emotional. You gaslit me while you were screwing your intern." David ran a hand through his hair. "It didn't mean anything." "Then why did it last 9 months?" she screamed. 9 months, David. That's how long you've been lying to my face. Sleeping in my bed, letting me wonder if I was the problem. 9 months, that's almost a year of me thinking I was just unlovable. A tense silence followed, heavy, smothering. Then she laughed, sharp and bitter. "You know what the worst part is?" she whispered. "I kissed someone too, and for once I felt seen. And I didn't feel guilty, not even a little until now, because I realize you checked out years ago, and I've been here, waiting for a man who didn't give a damn if I lived or died." His voice cracked. "Margaret, I'm sorry. Maggie, please, don't call me Maggie," she snarled. "You lost that right the moment you started screwing Carissa." She grabbed the wedding photo off the table, stared at it a moment. The frozen smiles, the vows no one honored, and then threw it into the sink. The glass cracked. "I'm done," she said, breath shaking. Not angry, not jealous. "Done. I've begged. I've shrunk myself. I've twisted into a damn pretzel trying to keep this house from falling apart. But you broke it." She turned her back and walked toward the stairs. David's voice broke behind her. "Where are you going?" "To remember who the hell I am," she said. "And it's not your shadow anymore."
Chapter 8. Her name was Margaret. The house she lived in now wasn't large. It didn't need to be. It was warm, tucked on a quiet street near the bay, with windows that let the light in and floors that creaked in the best way. There were books stacked in corners, paintings on the walls, and a deep red armchair she claimed as her throne. There was no emptiness here, only space she chose. "I was worried about you last year," Sarah admitted as they sat on the couch, wine in hand. "You sounded gone." "I was," Margaret said. "But I found my way back." Jordan grinned. "You sound stronger, like you finally took your life back." She nodded. "I did." They didn't ask for details, they didn't need to. They saw it in her eyes, the peace, the softness, the quiet fire. That evening, she hosted dinner. Her first as herself. The table was simple but beautiful. Fresh flowers, her mother's old dishes, a new blue tablecloth she bought on a whim. The smell of roasted garlic and thyme filled the room. When the doorbell rang, Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You invited someone," she teased. Margaret smiled, walking to the door. There stood Elias, in a slate gray sweater, carrying a wrapped canvas and a bottle of red. "Evening," he said. "I come bearing art and wine." "Perfect," she replied. Sarah and Jordan exchanged looks. Jordan mouthed, "Who's that?" Sarah mouthed back, "I think it's Mom's friend." After dinner, Elias handed Margaret the wrapped painting. She opened it slowly. Inside was a portrait, not of her face, but of her hands. Soft, strong, worn, one holding a cup of tea, the other resting atop a journal. It wasn't glamorous, it was true. Margaret swallowed hard. "You always see me exactly as I am. That's the only version I want," he said. Later, when the kids were laughing in the kitchen, Margaret and Elias stood on the back porch, mugs in hand. "I didn't think I'd ever be happy like this again," she said. "You didn't wait for happiness," Elias said. "You built it." She looked at him. Really looked. "I don't need rescuing." "I know," he replied. "But I'd love to walk beside you if you'll let me." She didn't answer right away. She just leaned her head against his shoulder. And in the quiet, she thought, this is what it feels like when life doesn't demand anything from you but your truth. That night, after the house settled and the laughter died down, Margaret slipped into her room and opened her journal. She wrote. Her name was Margaret. She loved deeply, even when it hurt. She lost herself, then found something better. Her voice, her peace, her children who saw her, and a man who never asked her to shrink. She wasn't perfect, she was free, and she was ready for whatever came next. Like and subscribe for more stories like this. See you in the next episode.